Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And right now on the podcast, it is State of Origin game number 3, game day preview time. And look, I'm going to get someone from New South Wales, and I'm also going to get someone from Queensland on the podcast for a chat about this. Someone who's played Origin. And right now, I've got a Queensland Origin player and a Panthers legend, a legend of rugby league as well, Mr. Scott Sattler on the line. How are you going, Scott?
I'm good, Troy. How are you, buddy?
Not too bad. Thank you very much for joining me. And no doubt, like myself, you are itching for Wednesday night Game 3 decider.
Yeah, I am. It doesn't matter whether you're supporting a state that has won 8 in a row or whether you're a team that everyone's starting to question about whether the stranglehold in Origin is finished. It's still nerve-wracking. I can't wait. I mean, living in Queensland, we see day to day as the game starts to unfold and get closer to Wednesday, you can just see that, you know, the people in the streets are, you know, getting ready. They're getting their houses ready. The flags start going up last week. It's very patriotic in Queensland when it comes to Origin. And even if you're not a rugby league fan in Queensland, I've just seen friends of mine that haven't been rugby league fans their entire life, but around Origin for some reason they just take an interest because everyone loves to attach themselves to something. So it's I'm nervous. I'm nervous just not because I think Queensland are behind the 8 ball. I'm just nervous because there's so much that rides on a game like this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking about being behind the 8 ball, are the changes in the Queensland team, do you think, are they the right changes that Billy Slater has made?
Well, 2 forced, of course, and then Jaden Sewer dropped, which surprised me, I've got to say. I know he made a few defensive the wrong decisions defensively in game 2. Most notably, obviously, that first one with Liam Martin's try.
Yep.
But in saying that, I was surprised he didn't at least retain his position on the bench. Of course, Xavier Coates being out and Murray Tuolangi out, they were forced changes. I do like that Val Holmes has been put back onto the wing because when things aren't going great for you as a player, and Val hasn't had his best season, he'd be the first to admit it, and hasn't had the best Origin series to date, the best thing you need to do is simplify the simple things. And the simplest way for Val to get back into form is just to simplify his role, and putting him back onto the wing where he's had great success, I think is a really good move by Billy Slater. And I like Selwyn Cobbo back. He was told he's not going to be included for game 2 for 2 reasons. One, you've got these niggling injuries which is affecting the way you play, so you need to go and get those right.
Yeah. And
then we'll bring you back in if we have to. So I'm fine with those 2. And Cobbo's had good success on that right wing before. So Kurt Capewell in the back row is probably the biggest one that everyone's starting to scratch their head around and say, I don't understand why. But if you go back and watch the game where they got beaten by the Bulldogs the weekend the Queensland team was picked, you go and look at all the little tiny efforts, the little tiny defensive efforts that Kurt Capewell commits himself to. That's what Billy Slater would refer to as Origin moments, and he did everything he could to change that game. Back in 2022, Game 3 as well, Troy, Queensland were in the same situation, got beaten by 40 in Perth and came with a lot of pressure. No Munster, Dearden playing a debut. Capewell was in the back row. Many questioned why. They came up and won that game, and Capewell was outstanding in that game, spending time in the centres. So I don't mind the changes, actually. It's all right.
Yep.
The big question you're probably going to ask is where is Fafita as well. So, I probably would have had him on the bench myself. But in saying that, I'm never going to question Billy because he's the one that watches every second of every moment of every player that's eligible. So I have faith in the selections he's made and why he's made them.
And one of those bench spots is Kayln Ponga. He returns to the Origin arena. How do you think he will be used off the bench?
I think he'll be used as a lock. He made his debut at lock and nearly won the game for Queensland that night if it wasn't for James Tedesco tackle at a core stadium. But I think he'll be used as a lock. I think Carrigan will probably be moved up into the front row about 20th minute when Lindsay Collins comes off, and depending on how the game's going, the momentum of the game. If Queensland are winning the battle in the middle, well, Collins will probably stay on for a little bit longer. But it's you've got to be really careful, and it's got to be a really smart move when to use Kayln. You don't just put him on when you're getting dominated, hoping that he's going to change everything. You got to put him on when you're winning the ascendancy and when you sort of feels like you're running downhill a little bit, like New South Wales were in game 2. So I feel as though he'll come on as a lock and defend on an edge, sort of inside one of the halves or 5/8. And I think he'll just be one of those guys that is running holes for ball players. He'll be pushing around, sweeping around like he does as a fullback. He'll be hanging around to play the ball. He'll just be really just a bit of a nomad. He won't have any sort of strict instructions, just wander around the field. And that's probably one of the big advantages Queensland has got, is that to have Ben Hunt or Harry Grant and Kayln and Reece on the field at the same time, there's a lot of threats there defensively.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of Kayln Ponga, along with Harry Grant and Reece Walsh, they haven't played a lot of football in recent times. Is that a concern going into an Origin game?
That's Origin. You have a lot of players that come together for 3 games a year, and somehow they click. I don't know how. It comes down to great coaching. It won't. I think Billy what he'll do is he won't try and confuse the situation. What I mean by that is I don't think we'll expect to see Reece and Kayln linking up together. I think we'll see Kayln and Reece at different parts of the field.
Yeah.
So defensively, you're looking up and going, well, what are they going to throw at us here? We're not quite sure. If Kayln and Reece are on the same side of the field, there's a fair chance it's going that way, isn't it? So you got the ability to defend up on it. So, I think I look at it from New South Wales' point of view always. I've spoken to some friends who I respect in the game, and it was a little bit like us going into game 2, Troy. We said, they picked Latrell. Oh, he's a danger. Well, New South Wales people in the game are saying, they picked Kayln. Yep. Yeah, that means there's a huge threat there.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Do you think it was 34-0 at half-time in Game 2? Queensland ended up losing that game. Is this the biggest test that Billy Slater's faced in his short coaching career?
No, he faced a bigger test in 2022. Like I said earlier, went over to Perth and got beaten by 40. Nathan Cleary put a clinic on. And then came back to Suncorp, and Cam Munster got COVID, so he was out of the game, and Tommy Dearden comes in as a debutant and has a man of the match game. So I think he was in a similar position, but probably I don't think as volatile as what it was 2 years ago. So he's been here before, and I think he's had a better preparation for this one when it comes to losing your best player in Munster. You're sort of used to not having him this series, and no injuries, last minute injuries or illnesses, whatever it may be. So no, he's been here before, but game 3 is always a challenge. Doesn't matter how long you've been coaching. You'll ask Mal when they went for a game 3 decider or a game 3 clean sweep. Either way, probably a different mindset from the coach, but still a lot of pressure. It never gets any easier, I don't think.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, there hasn't been any of the regular Queensland bugs going through the team this week that I've known of. That they seem to. It's a Queensland special, isn't it? That they've
been playing a lot of golf, but I've seen that.
Yeah, definitely looking a lot relaxed going into the game. Who do you think in the New South Wales team? Do you think Queensland will be mindful of and possibly target?
Well, they'll be mindful of Moses with the ball in hand, definitely. And they'll be mindful of the big, powerful forwards. I thought Payne Haas was the best player in game 1. Mitchell wouldn't be able to do what he did without what Payne Haas and Angus Crichton did up front for him. Yeah. So they'll be mindful of the effect that Payne and Angus and those guys had on them physically. So basically, if Queensland aren't winning the game physically up to the 20-25 minute mark, I think New South Wales will have to if they can stay consistent, they can damage Queensland quite a bit. But I think they'll be mindful of that, and also they'll be mindful of Mitchell with the ball in hand. They'll be mindful of the effect that Stephen Crichton has on this side, as a bit like a spiritual leader, not actually the captain with the C next to his name, but just what he can do with the side and how he can turn things defensively for them. But what they can focus on is Mitchell Moses defensively. If you go back and watch game 2, Queensland had 3 shots down their left-hand side and made 2 line breaks. And in the second half, when there was 50-50 possession, they were able to score 18 points, and a lot of those line breaks came down that left-hand side, which is the right-hand side where Mitchell Moses defends. So I think with the ball in hand, he's the most dangerous person on the field outside of Reece and Kayln. But defensively, they can probably get some love there when it comes to when they go down that side of the field.
And you mentioned the Queensland forwards there. They were obviously dominated by New South Wales in Game 2 and probably a little bit embarrassed in Melbourne. Do you think they will want to definitely turn the tides in Game 3 and show them what they're worth?
Well, it's just the pride. It's a pride thing, When you peel back the layers of Game 2 and you look at it purely from a statistic point of view, being in Melbourne and calling that game and seeing it live for SEN, I wrote a note and passed it across to my colleague Jimmy Smith at about the 27-minute mark, and New South Wales had repeat set after repeat set after repeat set, and the body language of Queensland was saying they were out on their feet, they were fatigued, and that's where the bullying comes from. That's when the physicality. That's when you win the physical battle. When you've got your opposition on the heels, and like I said earlier on, it feels like you're running downhill when you're running the ball up. You feel as though the contact's not coming as often, and it's not coming as urgent, and it's not coming with that level of physicality that you're used to when you're playing those big games. So when you get all that possession and it feels like you've got the wind at your back, it makes the game a lot easier. I don't think you're going to find that in Queensland. I think that if the possession's 50-50, well, we'll see a regular Origin game that we've seen through the history of State of Origin, how physical this battle can be from both sides.
Now, we know playing Origin up in Queensland at Suncorp Stadium can be pretty intimidating, and it is a sellout, 52,500 people there. How much of an advantage is that, having the hometown crowd, and especially at Suncorp?
Well, it plays on New South Wales' mind before you even get there, because before Game 2, we heard a lot of the media, some of the players saying we've got to win this game to give ourselves a chance at Suncorp.
Yep.
So they're already talking about Suncorp before you win Game 2. And then still a lot of the discussion is around going to Suncorp, exactly like you're doing, Troy, as a New South Wales fan. You've got to go to Queensland. Yep. So you use that to your advantage, but you can't expect it to help you. Queensland don't rely on it. New South Wales fear it.
Okay.
But I was speaking to Brent Tate the other day, who has played many of Origins. He's played 20, 22 Origins or whatever he's played, 26 Origins. And I said to him, how much does the Queensland crowd help you when you're playing Suncorp? He said, doesn't mean anything if you're not winning. He said, they bring you home if you're winning.
Okay.
He said, if you're losing the game, they don't bring you back into the game. He said, I believe the Suncorp crowd helps you when you're winning. It allows you to overwhelm the opposition when you're winning. So that's really important, that Queensland have got to win those early battles and, score the first try, and hopefully that, however many Queensland fans out of that 52,500 are there, can continue to put weight onto the back of New South Wales.
Does it have an influence on the refereeing at Suncorp?
I think it does. Yeah. I think it does, because when you're playing those big crowds, you feel as though they're all just sitting, just hovering over the top of you. You don't feel like you've got any room to move. And I feel as though that maybe when an official or a referee is possibly thinking about, might be a forward pass, might be maybe a gentle knock on, not quite sure, I think the pressure of the crowd forces you into making some decision.
Yep.
And, but with the captain's challenge these days and the bunker, I think, a lot of those will slowly, as the years move on, will just slowly get eradicated out of the game, I think. But But I definitely think it plays. Well, statistics tells you. I think Queensland have won the penalty count against New South Wales. I think it's by a third in the history of Origin. The amount of penalties that have been given at Suncorp. I think it's
43.
Queensland
They've won 43 penalty counts to New South Wales 9 since 1980.
Yeah, so it's so it sits in favour of the. Yeah, and I hate that stat being made public because then it puts pressure on the officials to reverse it.
Yeah, no doubt it would. Yeah, for sure. Do you think if Queensland win this game and this series, do you think possibly we are slowly starting to see another Queensland dynasty? Because it'll be 3 years in a row now that they've won Origin.
It's a good question. It's unpredictable. Origin's unpredictable. You know, I think what New South Wales fans like yourself and the listeners and the media, what they tend to do is try and look at any success that Queensland has. If you win 2 in a row, 3 in a row, they go, oh, possible Queensland dynasty again. But we'll never see that group of players that came through together. We'll never see that again in the history of the game, where they all played a lot of rep footy together. Yeah, you go from Brent Tate, Justin Hodges and Corey Parker, those guys that all played junior Kangaroos together, and they're a little bit older than the Cam Smiths and the Cooper Cronks and the Billy Slaters and the JTs and the those guys that all played a lot of rugby league together as well at rep level and coming through the juniors. So we'll never see a group of players, Greg Inglis, that'll come through together in one team. They're going to win 8 series straight and then another 4 or 5 on top of that as well. A dynasty is probably a stretch, but it also comes to the man that's in the coaching box. Like if they win game 3, and I'm going to say if, I'm going to say when Queensland win game 3 on Wednesday night, you're looking at a guy, Billy, who I believe is starting to prove that he could potentially be one of our great modern coaches.
Okay, yeah. Do you think he will go down the NRL path then, if that's the case?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, to be honest. I think he's got other interests that far outweigh that decision at the moment. He's got a very successful thoroughbred company. His wife's a very successful artist. They got a very comfortable life in Melbourne. He works for Channel 9. I love his analytic view of the game. And but he's still only young, Billy.
Yeah.
He might not look at it for another 3 or 4 years. You don't know. Would he only coach at Melbourne? Well, I don't know. The good thing about Billy is he holds his cards very close to his chest. He's very Wayne Bennett-like. Like he doesn't give too much away, and he gets people thinking. And when you don't have enough information, people just start coming up with their own conclusions. And you've got to be careful if you try and read someone, because they'll come out of left field and make a decision you never even thought they'd make. So, the word and the conspiracies are is that, well, they're just sort of waiting till Craig finally wants to give it a day, and then Billy will just slip into that role. Well, I don't think it's that easy. I think Benji's proven that as well, that you can't just slip into an NRL role. Origin is a completely different beast. It's a lot easier than coaching week-to-week rugby league. You've got to not only coach a team of 30 players, you've got development players, you've also got to oversee all your pathway projects, you also got to oversee a group of staff in the football department along with your general manager of rugby league. It's a taxing job that's 24 hours. I'm not sure he's at that stage of his life, to be quite honest. I did interview Craig Bellamy some years ago, just after Cam retired, and I said, out of the 3 great players you coached, Craig, which one would be a coach? And he said, I don't think Cam will be a head coach because he loves his quiet time, his family time too much. Like he's quite an introvert. He actually doesn't like putting himself out there. He said Cooper would be a great coach, but he'd have to dull it down because he's far more intelligent than the average rugby league player. So he'd have to be able to discuss it in layman's terms with the players, which I've got no doubt he'd be able to do. Yep. He said, but this is before Billy even took up the Origin job. He said, but Billy's the man that could be a captain coach in the NRL. He said he could transform into a coach at any stage, at any time he wants to, because he was basically like another coach when I was coaching. He was the one that came up with a lot of our game plans. He was the one that implemented a lot of the team discussion. So, it doesn't surprise someone like a Craig Bellamy that Billy's been able to do what he's done coaching in such a short time.
Yeah, no, only time will tell with that one for sure. But at the moment, he's concentrating on a Queensland victory on Wednesday night. And you mentioned just before there, when Queensland win, well, prediction time now. Who's your first try scorer in the game on Wednesday night?
My first try scorer is Val Holmes on the left wing. I'm pretty sure he's playing left wing. That's where he used to always play, and Cobbo's played on the right wing when he's played for Queensland in the past. So I'm saying Val Holmes from a cutout ball from Reece Walsh, and I'm going to say player of the match. I'm going to say Ben Hunt. I'm going to say player of the series, Wally Lewis medal, which I think should be the Lewis or Kenny medal.
Okay.
To be quite honest.
No, that's very interesting. Yeah, the old State of Origin shield, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to say Ben Hunt will be player of the series and Wally Lewis medalist. And I think the scoreline will be 22 points to 12.
Interesting. I hope it's the reverse, but no, that's your predictions, and that's fine. Some very interesting selections there. I think it'll be New South Wales about 20-16. I think possibly a crossfield kick from Mitch Moses to Zach Lomax, like we have seen before, will be the first try, and a man of the series will, I think, potentially. It could be that man, Zach Lomax. He's had a great series for New South Wales.
He has, hasn't he? Yeah. I think we will see HIA very early in the game, like a bad one. I think the collisions early on this game will be next level.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Can't wait for Wednesday night, 8 p.m, Game 3, State of Origin. Scott Sattler, Queensland legend, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today and giving me your State of Origin preview.
Anytime, buddy.
The Para Cave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Para Cave Podcast, the Parramatta Times. And the second part of the Game Day preview I have on the podcast, I've got a New South Wales legend on the line, Mr. Mark Geyer. How you going, MG?
Hello, Troy. How are you, my friend?
Oh, not too bad, and probably like yourself, just waiting for Wednesday night to come along, Game 3, the decider.
Yeah, I can't think of a Game 3 that I've really... I've been so pumped for. Like, I know that, usually when they're out of town, like Brisbane, Melbourne, or interstate, it kind of takes a fair bit of time for it to come around. And now it's here. Now it's all last week, ever since the War of Words have started. I think I've really gotten into it. And I think Madge Maguire's got to take a big pat on the back for that, because he certainly upset a few apple carts. Yeah,
for sure. The glass houses comments and a few other ones there. Now, the makeup of the New South Wales team, are you happy with the changes? Do you think they are the right ones, with Barnett on the bench and Bradman Best in the centres?
Yeah, I do. I think, obviously Latrell's injured, and I think we don't lose too much with Bradman Best. He's a bulldozer. He was there for Game 3 last year, so he's kind of au fait of what's going on. I think Barnett was unlucky not to make the first team, to be honest. I thought his form has been outrageous. He's for any bloke who gives up opportunity for the birth of their kid to attend a training session with the Blues, that means his blood must be blue. He deserves his spot. So, the whole Quiet I thought was unlucky. He didn't do anything wrong, but when you got Leo Martin and Angus Crichton playing so well, and Cameron Murray can always play second row, so I think Richie Barnett. I think Barnett gets there because of the fact that he can play both on an edge and in the middle as well, and lock.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing him come off the bench, and Spencer Lino as well. They're definitely ones that we want to see get into those Queenslanders. Now, we saw Mitchell Moses do a bit of a masterclass down in Melbourne, with New South Wales leading 34-0 at half-time. Probably before that game, the grand final of 22 was his probably biggest game of his career, but does this Game 3 surpass that now?
I think so. I think so. Look, you can't ever go past the grand final. They're massive. They're a culmination of teammates who have slogged it out for a long time, and you get together and try and win the ultimate prize. And I think, but as far as pressure goes, this is going to be so different to Melbourne. He'll have the target on his head like no other. Queensland will be able to stop him. He probably had one of the best games from a number 7 period in Melbourne. So he will have a massive target on his head. I think you'll know that. He's matured well, Mitch. He knows what's at stake. He's got an experienced backline outside of him. He's got experienced forwards inside of him. He's got to make sure he worries about what he can do, and that's he's got a great kicking game and a great passing game, and he can run the ball as well. So I've got no doubt he can handle it.
I know Origin 2025 is a long way away, but if New South Wales win this Game 3 this year, does that mean Mitch is probably a certainty for next year?
Unfortunately not. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that he's got to work for it, because there's a bloke called Cleary waiting in the wings to come back and play. So unfortunately, and I suppose rightly so, there is no mortgage on any not just New South Wales but Queensland as well. As David Fafita has found out, you don't get that jersey just because you're an incumbent. You've got to work hard for it. And Mitch will have to do the same thing next year, all going well. I suppose if New South Wales do win this series, it's a big notch in his belt, but long way till, as you just said, long way till 2025 Origin comes around.
That's right. Now, something that you love looking forward to in each and every game is the forward battle. Now, New South Wales, they were dominant in Game 2. Do you expect that to continue in Game 3?
Well, I can't say it not, Troy. I expected a couple of changes maybe for the Queensland team. You probably haven't seen. I reckon I'll even start with Kafusi in that first 10 or 15 minutes. I reckon they'll probably bring either Ruben Cotter or Capewell off later. But I think Kafusi will definitely start for their team. I think that they need as much firepower as they can to combat the likes of the Payne Haas's of the world. And as I said before, Crichton and Liam Martin basically just won that game. It was similar to the 2022 grand final when, Fisher Harris and Leota went after Campbell Gillard and Junior Paulo. I think it's, if they can do something similar in Game 3 on Wednesday night against Queensland, well, then it's an easy job for the backs. But, it's easier said than done. We haven't done it since 2005. Decided up there at Queensland, and there's a reason for that, because I reckon they're an 8 to 10 points better team up there. So what we've seen in them first 2 games, I don't think we'll see in Game 3. I'd be surprised if either team wins by a lot. I think it's going to be one of them dogged games. I think it's going to be like a 20 points to 18 or something. And we're going to see a real game of attrition. It's a big boost them playing their 3rd game in Queensland. And as I said, the crowd of 55,000 screaming Queenslanders, which is always a massive help, will be on their side. It's very noisy, very loud. The crowd's on top of you. You haven't got time to think. You can't hear your teammate outside of you, so it's all got to be in preparation. And we spoke to Madge Maguire this morning in our Brekkie show, and he sounded pretty pumped. He sounded confident. He said that we haven't left any stone unturned, and obviously he's going to say that. But I like the fact that Madge Maguire hasn't got any outside influences whatsoever. Every other coach over the last 20-odd years has always had something else to worry about, whether it be a club side that they're coaching, whether it be a media commitment that they've got to do. And this time, Madge Maguire's sole purpose is State of Origin, and I think it's showing in the way he's leaving those stone unturned.
One thing he did mention previously, he wanted the bus to go past down Caxton Street. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that should have happened?
Well, I experienced it a couple of times, I must say, and it's one of them things that be careful what you wish for, because it is scary.
Yeah.
No, I think I would love to have seen him do it, Troy, to be honest. I reckon it's almost a rite of passage that you get the experience. And I remember experiencing it back in 1986 as an under-18s player, and just even that, then like about 3 or 4 hours before the game was scary, and then 89, 91, I experienced it, and I tell you, it was just you're driving towards the venue and you can start to hear this buzz. Yeah. And all of a sudden you get close and you go, that's not a buzz, that's the crowd. And then you start, you're in Caxton Street because you start getting 4X cans thrown at your bus, and they're full. So
Yeah.
who throws a full beer away?
That's right. And especially wouldn't want to do it these day and age, the cost of them anyway. But I remember, I think it was Steve Mortimer who said to the team in '85 that, let's go down Caxton Street, and when they were there, jump on the left-hand side of the bus, and it actually gave them inspiration to win the game.
Well, it is. It's just one of them things that when you experience it, you can't believe you're seeing it. You can't believe that this is a crowd of rugby league fans. They're so rabid that they just want to. Honestly, if you got off the bus, you'd be chewed up and spat out. They'd get a hold of you, but the safety of the glass, thank God, was there. And I think that in today's day and age, when we are living in a different society, and obviously I don't think the police wanted to let the New South Wales boys down that route, which is a shame, really, because it's an experience of a lifetime.
Hopefully, maybe one day it might come back. But speaking of the crowd, how much of an advantage is that for Queensland? I mean, we see New South Wales worried about it, I guess, thinking about it before Game 2, having to say that they need to win Game 2 to get up to Game 3. And we've also seen the penalty count stat that's come out recently that Queensland have won 43 penalty counts to New South Wales 9 when games are played up at Lang Park or Suncorp. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. I think we know it. I think they know that's what's coming for them. They know that the crowd's going to be against them. They know that the official, and it's not the referee's fault. It's just they get caught up in the game as well. And it's just one of them things. I don't think they do it on purpose. It's just one of them things that I think the energy of Queensland playing at home is probably almost twice as much as anywhere else. And I think it's as I said earlier, I think it's at least 8 to 10 points of advantage for them. It's at least a try advantage to them. So I know Madge Maguire, before they left for Brisbane, in one of their last sessions up at the mountains where their base is, they hired a DJ to come to training and pump out music as loud as they could to get like a bit of a simulation of exactly what they're going to face. Even that simulation, you can time it up by 5 and you still wouldn't even be close, because as soon as they run out the field at about 8:05 on Wednesday, that roar is just something to behold. It's just one of the great gifts of rugby league, I reckon, when you run out that field at Suncorp on the third Origin. It's something very special, and our boys have to be up for it. The first 10 minutes, if you remember, 2022 was it, when there was 3 players just went kamikaze, and they a couple of head bins and one bloke got
Cameron Murray, I think he didn't come back.
Cam Murray, Selwyn Cobbo was one of them as well, I think, and. So look, it's going to be on for young and old. That wherever you are, at about 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, make sure you're in front of the TV, because this first 10 minutes is going to be something to see.
Well, I know you probably don't like talking about them too much, but who in the Queensland side do you think New South Wales should be mindful of and potentially target in the game?
Well, I think someone like Harry Grant's had a pretty quiet series. Obviously playing with a bit of injury. That sternum injury hasn't been kind to him, so he's one bloke I worry about out of dummy half, depending on what time he gets on the game. And then you've got obviously Reece Walsh, who has, by his standards, has been pretty quiet the last 3 or 4 months. And that guy called Ponga, who's coming off the bench, who we don't really know what state of mind he's in at the moment after coming back from a 10-week layoff with a foot injury. So. He showed his first game back that he was right for it against Canberra. He's him on the bench coming on against a tired outfit. Wow, it could be very dangerous. So he's the biggest worry, I think, Ponga, and he's coming off the bench. So is Harry Grant.
What sort of role do you think Kayln will play in the game off the bench?
Yeah, I don't know, buddy. I don't know, mate. I honestly don't know. He could go from anywhere from fullback to wing to centre to 5'8" to halfback. He could play anywhere in the back line, and he could also play as that roaming lock forward. I think he made his debut at lock forward coming off the bench a few years ago. So I don't know. I wherever he plays, it's kind of that. As soon as he goes on the field, the trainers from New South Wales will be running on saying Ponga's on. So
just like the old Walker's on.
Exactly.
Now, before we get into some predictions, how does New South Wales win this game?
They weather the early storm, and they have a commanding performance from Mitchell Moses on the back of his kicking game. They drive Queensland into submission. No. And they tackle their arse out as soon as they get hold of Queensland coming off their own end, and don't give away silly penalties, because that's, as you said before, that's the officials are on high alert, and it's one of them things where every 50-50 will go Queensland's way. So you just got to be vigilant and don't get too over emotional, because the game goes for 80 minutes, not 10. So you've got to weather that early storm from Queensland, and once you do, I think New South Wales, this side on paper, man, it's very, very strong. It's got a strong bench. I love the way that this team has, kind of morphed into the mould that Madge Maguire's wanted them to, and they're going to take some beating, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Now, the hard part, the predictions part, who's your first try scorer in the game?
I think Queensland might score first. Okay. I think someone like Reece Walsh or a Hammer Tappy White-Fido could be the first try scorer. Then I think we might wake from our slumber after that first 10 minutes, and then Then I think it's going to be something like the end result, as I said before, 22 points to 18, New South Wales, and I think the man of the match will be either Cam Murray or Robson.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the man of the series will be Liam Martin.
Yeah, nice. He's played a stirring role in both games, game 1 and 2 so far. And, definitely New South Wales need him to step up in game 3 as well, for sure. I'm going for Zach Lomax off a Mitchell Moses cross-field kick like we have seen before. I think it'll be about a 20-16 game. And man of the series, I'm actually thinking Zach Lomax as well. If he can produce that form that he had in game 1 and 2 for his debut series, I think he might go close to winning the Wally Lewis medal, which Scott Sattler just mentioned before. He would probably name it the Kenny Lewis medal. What's your thoughts on that one?
I haven't really given it much thought, to be honest. I think there's been no more dominant player in State of Origin than Wally Lewis. I think that, as soon as I think of State of Origin, I think of Wally Lewis. And, I look, if they're going to change, if they're going to do it, if they were ever to change the name, I don't mind what Sat says. Yeah, I'd probably go along them lines as well. But I don't think they'll change it. I think it's going to be. It's like the Alan Border medal. It's like all these other things that have been, named after a player who's been inspirational. Why change it now?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, they were both.
It's the Clive Churchill medal forever. It's these guys have been noted. These guys have been recognised for their brilliance in a hard sport. And even though I think Brett Kenny should be an immortal. It's probably Lewis who the hardest player was to play against in Origin. It was always Brett Kenny who always had the upper hand on him. So, but Wally Lewis, man, he's the king for a reason, man. They don't call many other people the king in our game, and for him to be to win that medal would be something special for a New South Welshman. Yeah,
for sure, definitely. Well, both you and I and many New South Wales fans can't wait for Wednesday night. It's going to be great. That's it. New South Wales to win the series. We can't have these Queenslanders winning the series again for a third year in a row. So thank you very much, MG, for joining me today on the podcast and giving me your thoughts on the game. Really appreciate it, and go the Blues.
Anytime, buddy. Go the Blues.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.